My name is Kritzas. I'm a counseling psychologist from LightHouse Arabia. And over the past 13 years, I've worked extensively with children, adolescents, and adults on a range of issues from depression, anxiety, burnout, stress. And I've dealt quite extensively with individuals in professional services. And so I hope to bring some of that experience into the webinar here with you today. For those of you who have just joined, welcome to Living Your Best Life webinar. I am going to share my deck with you shortly. And the way we will run this webinar is that I will speak for the next 40 to 45 minutes on the subject. And then we will have 15 minutes or so for Q&A time. Please note that you can pop your questions into the Q&A section. It is at the bottom of your control bar on your screens, and I will get your questions within the end of the session together. But I'm looking forward to spending the next hour with all of you. If you can just give me 1 minute, I'm going to share my screen with you. And can I just see a show of hands? Can all of you see and hear me clearly? Okay, great. Wow. So we're off to a good start then. Lovely. So this subject is very near and dear to me, and it's something that I've gone back and forth with to try and understand what are the core ingredients that go into us living our best lives. And just understanding that we don't only want to survive, we also want to thrive. And so what is it that we need to do in order to move the needle when it comes to our own authentic happiness? And what is authentic happiness? It's a word that's used so loosely in society, but often we get it confused with the idea that we need to be happy all the time. And so I'm going to spend some time today speaking about authentic happiness, speaking about the ingredients that go into us living an authentic life, and then looking at some keystone habits that we need to adopt in order to be able to live our best lives. So before we get into it, I'd like to share with you a bit about LightHouse Arabia. We're a mental health and wellbeing center located in central Dubai, where we offer psychological services and psychiatric care to individuals across the lifespan. We have a team of 30+ clinicians, and during the pandemic, we moved majority of our services online, and we are also doing a lot of support sessions online as well. And I can share more with you about that at the end of the session. So when we think about the objectives for today, we will be looking at things that get in the way of us living a life on purpose. And as I mentioned, we will go through the key ingredients around authentic happiness and then looking at how we can build these healthy habits. So what is it then that gets in the way of us living life on purpose? When we think about this, we need to understand what are the roadblocks, what are the obstacles that we are faced with at the moment. And it seems we've entered an era of overwhelm, a time when too many people's mental well-being is being stretched through multitasking, fragmented attention, and information overload. This is the current state of affairs. We are all feeling fragmented. We are often multitasking, and as a result, we're experiencing unhappiness, and we are feeling disconnected to the moment. We are disconnected in our relationships. We are feeling more lonely than ever before. And we know that, that the greatest predictor of happiness is linked to deep, meaningful relationships in our lives. And so just understanding that, I think, and understanding that we have entered this era of overwhelm which is quite obvious when we look at the statistics from the World Health Organization. At the beginning of the 21st century, it was predicted that in 2020, depression would be the leading cause of disability. We reached that in 2015 already. So this brings me to our next slide. What are these barriers to us living life authentically, to us living life on purpose? And the first thing that I would say is the fact that we are being busy. Your phone is costing you your future. And what we see is that the average person checks their phone 200 to 500 times per day. And if you look at the great geniuses of this world, the Shakespeares, the Beethovens, and the present day, Richard Bransons, Bill Gates, they all spend time away from digital distractions. Richard Branson plays a singles tennis game every morning at 6 a.m. And you could either be like the majority, being busy, or you could be super successful, but you don't get to be both. And so just stopping and getting off that hamster wheel would be a good start to understanding what is going on at the moment and doing like a self-reflection, where you can journal a bit about, why is it that I'm struggling to get out of the space? And speaking of digital distractions, social media has become one of the biggest culprits here. The more time you spend online, the more you fall prey to that social comparison theory, okay? And so I'm yet to meet someone who comes off Instagram and goes, oh, I feel so good about life, okay? And we need to look into that, because research has shown a strong correlation between social media usage and depression and anxiety in individuals. And so what we're seeing is that people's idea of success is being really skewed through the messages we receive on social media. And then stress is another factor. We cannot create when we are in a state of stress. And in order to live an authentic life, we're going to need to create. And if you're still stuck in the past, if you're still holding on to things that have happened in the past, if you're struggling to forgive people from your past, it really drags your energy down, and it makes it very difficult for you to be in the present moment and to create in this moment. And so stress can often cloud our judgment. It can often move us further and further away from our values. And when we are disconnected from our core values, we are usually the most unhappy we will be, okay? Because we are not aligned with what matters most to us. And then there are also those who are married to their comfort zones. And, often what happens is that when we have traits of perfectionism, or we fear failure and we want to play it safe, we are most likely to get stuck in our comfort zone. And so a very important point here is to embrace vulnerability, is to embrace the unknown, because vulnerability is emotional exposure. It is stepping into the unknown. It is not knowing everything, but in those moments we experience the most growth. And something that Seth Godin, who is a marketing guru from the States, highlights is that playing it safe is very risky. It's actually the riskiest thing you could ever do in your life, because it is then where you will look back on your life when you are 99 years old and sitting on that rocking chair and wonder about what if I took that risk? What if I said yes to that opportunity? What if I moved to that country at that age, right? And so we need to understand that it's important for us to take steps outside of our comfort zone, because magic and opportunity do not reside in your comfort zone. And that's a fact. And so when we are also looking at what gets in the way, it can be a fixed mindset. And what we know about mindset, and something that Carol Dweck, who coined the term growth mindset versus fixed mindset, speaks about, is that a fixed mindset is, when we believe that our abilities are carved in stone, when we feel like, well, this is just how I am. I've always been this way. And you can hear when people are adopting a fixed mindset. They will say things like, oh no, I'm not a morning person, or I'm not a runner, or no, I'm not good in the kitchen. Okay. And what I want to say to that, especially to the point about I'm not a morning person, is that it's genius to say I'm not a morning person, because guess what? Then I never have to get out of bed at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. Right? So sometimes we label ourselves as something, and that often keeps us locked in that comfort zone. And so I challenge you to go and look at the stories that you tell yourself about yourself, right? Because that's often what keeps us stuck in one place. And then procrastination is another big one. And what we know is that procrastination and perfectionism are like two peas in a pod. Those two love hanging out together, procrastination and perfectionism, because the more you focus on things being perfect, the more you'll delay starting on those projects because it's not perfect. And research has come out about procrastination, and what they found is that one of the main causes of procrastination is an individual's inability to sit with difficult emotions. The more you are unable to regulate your difficult feelings, the more you will procrastinate in life. So like boredom is a difficult feeling. We don't like to sit with that. And so as soon as we're doing a task and it feels bored, we will procrastinate. And so it's learning to sit through these difficult feelings like boredom, like frustration, like irritation. Let's say you're not getting something right while you're engaging in a problem-solving task. You may then find yourself not being able to sit with that irritation, and then you get up and you leave the task and you start procrastinating. And people have this idea that procrastination is an exercise where you are doing nothing. But procrastination is actually taking action. You are doing something in that moment that is distracting you from what it is that you need to do. And then another thing that we see is this instant gratification, where I feel like I want things done yesterday already, and not being able to understand that it's going to take time, and we don't just sow and reap in life. We sow, and then we reap. Okay, and so it's about not giving up. It's about following through on things. And I'll use the stone cutter analogy. I love the story of the stone cutter. There once was this stone cutter, and he was knocking away at this big rock, and he was trying to break the rock in two, and he's hitting away at the rock. And on the 99th blow, this rock still hasn't split in two. And he's thinking, I could give up now, but let me just try again. And on the 100th blow, nothing happens. And on the 101st blow, this rock splits in two. Now, if someone had walked past at the 99th blow and they watched the stone cutter hitting at this rock twice, they would look at it and think that's an overnight success. But what they don't know is that time in and time out, it took perseverance to get to the goal, to get to that achievement. And so it's important that we enjoy the process, and that we don't just focus on the destination, but that we focus on the journey here too. Right. So when we are thinking about building these healthy habits, I designed this slide with values in the center for a very good reason. And it is that our values need to be our internal compass. Our values are the very things that, you know, give us more meaning and purpose in life. They are our guide towards what is most important to us in our work and personal lives. And if we know what our values are, we will have a better sense of direction, we'll feel more grounded, we'll make better decisions and feel overall happier. Okay. And so what you also see is that on the peripheral of this home, I have put down the core ingredients for living your best life. And they are in a specific order for a reason as well. So Dan Siegel, who's a clinical professor from UCLA, and his colleague David Rock came up with a healthy mind platter. And just like you have the healthy food platter, which tells us what we need to eat in a day in order to, have optimal energy, so do we have a healthy mind platter of certain key activities we need to do in our day that will ensure optimal brain functioning. Okay, so they came up with 7 activities, and we have added an 8th one called investing time. Right, so there is method to my madness here. I have put them in such a way that we start out with sleep time, and then we will move on to looking at your morning routine, which includes time in and physical time, then focus time, followed by some downtime in the afternoon, playtime, connecting time, and then investing time in the evenings. And the reason that I've allocated these tasks to specific times in the day is not just because, but this is anchored in research by Daniel Pink, who is the author of the bestseller book, When? Scientific Secrets Behind Perfect Timing. And so there's a time and place that you do everything, and you need to work with your body's natural circadian rhythms if you want to be the most productive. And so there are certain times in the day that are indicated for certain activities. And what they have found is that the first 2 hours after waking up in the morning, you will be the most creative at that 2-hour mark. And so if you are like the majority of the population who fall asleep at 11 p.m. and wake up at 7 a.m., then around 9 a.m. will be your most creative time, from 9 till 12 p.m. Okay, and that is when you need to be doing things that involve brainstorming, creativity, problem solving, analytical thinking, right? And so just to understand that our bodies go through an energy increase in that time, and then around 1 p.m. or so, your energy levels start to drop until around 4 p.m. And it's important to know that during that time, we don't want to be doing any, important work that requires a lot of brain energy. They even found that doctors, so surgeons in theater, made the most mistakes, right, on patients after 2 p.m. in the afternoon. Okay, and so doing surgery in the morning was often prescribed to surgeons because they are more alert, they are focusing more specifically on what it is that they need to be doing. So just important that we understand what is happening. And then around 4 p.m. till bedtime, we usually have a surge of energy again, right? So let us begin with firstly understanding what authentic happiness is, because our values are timeless. Our values, as I showed, were in the center of that realm. They are timeless. They will always be there, and we can connect with our values at any time of day. And so when we are most connected to our values, we will experience authentic happiness. Now, what is authentic happiness? Martin Seligman, who is one of the founders of positive psychology, explains that we need to live our 3 lives in order to experience authentic happiness: the pleasant life, the good life, and the meaningful life. But the pleasant life, if lived by itself, will not bring about life satisfaction. And what is the pleasant life? The pleasant life is when we savor and appreciate life's basic pleasures that bring upon these positive emotions. So for example, when we travel, we may experience positive emotions. When we listen to nice music, we experience positive emotions. When we eat at nice restaurants or live in beautiful homes or drive nice cars, we experience positive emotion, okay? When we have found a companion, we experience positive emotion. But what he explained is that this is not enough for us to experience a life on purpose and feel like we're living life on purpose. And an example that I can use of this is us getting stuck in our ego. And when we live a life where we get stuck in our ego, we will never experience authentic happiness. And it's very easy to get caught up in the ego, especially in a place like the UAE, where there is everything and anything at our disposal, and consumerism and hedonism is at its highest. And so what I mean by this is, let's say, for example, I have been eyeing out a beautiful pair of Chanel sunglasses. And I think to myself, if I just can purchase those sunglasses, I will be happy. And so I save up money, and one fine day comes and I get into my car and I drive to Dubai Mall and I walk into the Chanel store and I purchase the pair of sunglasses that I've been eyeing out. And I'm feeling so happy and excited. And I'm thinking about where I'm going to wear these glasses and how I'm going to wear them and what it will look like. And as I step out of Dubai Mall, I put these glasses on and I look up and I see this billboard in front of me. And it says Fendi 2021 Summer Collection. And there's this beautiful pair of Fendi glasses. And I look at it and I go, oh, I want those. I don't want these anymore. And that is just the essence of us getting caught up in living the pleasant life, because our ego is never satisfied. Our ego always wants more, right? So what Martin Seligman explained is that we need to move into living the good life. And what is living the good life? It is when we know what our signature strengths are and we start acting on them. It is when we know of the things that we're good at and we start doing more of the things that we're good at, because then we feel like we're in a state of flow. Then we feel engaged with life. And so an example that I could use here is of a gifted martial arts student who goes off to win countless competitions in martial arts. And she feels like she's in a state of flow when she's doing martial arts. She's really good at it and she gets gold medals for it and recognition. And so there she is in her good life. And then one fine day, she starts teaching a little boy who struggles with autism how to do martial arts. And she starts to see how her teaching him makes him more confident and he is generally happier. And she realizes that she's used one of her signature strengths to the greater good of her community. And so when we are able to use our strengths for the purpose greater than ourselves, then we tap into meaning, then we tap into purpose, then we move into living a meaningful life. And so I'm not saying that we shouldn't have aspirations to have the Chanel sunglasses or the sports car or the beautiful home in Bali. Yes, those things can be important as well, but they will hold even more meaning and satisfaction when they are brought into the bigger realm of what is important in life. And to be able to live the meaningful life, the good life, and the pleasant life together brings us that authentic happiness. Right, so now that we know what that is, what do we need to do day in and day out to ensure that this is happening, to ensure that we are engaging with our greatest strengths? Well, we're going to need to make sure we're getting sufficient sleep. And I'd like to see a show of hands. How many of you get less than 7 hours of sleep a night? And I'm just going to drink some coffee while I look at these numbers rise. Wow. My screen has lit up here, people. And what I can say about this is that anything less than 7 hours of sleep is considered sleep deprivation. Okay. And we are living with a sleep deficit at the moment, because we know that sleep is the foundation of good mental and physical health. And in order to start your day off feeling energized, it would need to be preceding a good night's sleep. Matthew Walker, who is a sleep scientist from UC Berkeley, says that the bridge between despair and hope is a good night's sleep. And our culture, unfortunately, views a person who needs sleep as being weak, and that, we should be able to burn the midnight oil, and, work hard, play hard is something that we often hear in professional services. But what we know is that this is having a detrimental impact on our health, okay? And when you sleep less than 7 hours a night, you wake up with a 60% more reactive amygdala. And the amygdala is the tiny almond-like structure in the brain that's responsible for emotion. And if that part of the brain is so lit up first thing in the morning, you are more likely to experience irritable mood, to lose your cool, to have temper tantrums. Yes, believe it or not, kids don't only experience temper tantrums. I've seen adults experience temper tantrums too. And often it is because they're not getting sufficient sleep. So this is something we need to understand about our sleep. This is the foundation of our mental and physical health. And what we know is that our best sleep occurs between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m. in the morning. And the reason for this is because it's following the circadian rhythms. In order for us to get the deep, slow wave sleep, we are going to need to get to bed earlier, right? And just understanding the effects of blue light and what that does to our sleep quality. What we see is that, we are getting to bed and the last thing we are looking at are our phones. And if we are engaging with devices just before bedtime, the blue light which emanates from your phone is the same light that surgeons use in theater when they're operating on a patient at 3 a.m. in the morning. That same light is hovering over the surgeon's head and, keeping the surgeon alert to operate on the left leg and not the right leg. And so what we see is that that same light is emanating from your phone. And that same light delays the release of melatonin, which is the sleep hormone. And if we are not getting enough melatonin into the system, then we are not getting into that deep sleep cycle. So that is just something important to mention, that sleep is the single most effective thing that you will do for your brain and body, right? And there's this idea that people have that sleep is rest. But that idea needs to be put to rest, because the body actually goes into work mode when we go to sleep. The only thing that's resting is your conscious mind, okay? So what we see is that, there are several functions that the body needs to undergo while we are sleeping. It helps clear out the lymphatic system. It helps with memory processing. It helps with emotional regulation. It helps with homeostatic restoration. And a lack of sleep is linked to many health issues, such as diabetes, heart disease. They even found a very strong link between Alzheimer's disease and a lack of sleep. So what we also know is that one night where we only experience 4 to 5 hours of sleep can make your natural killer cells go down by 70%. So it starts to impact on your immune system. And the glymphatic system, which is responsible for flushing out waste from our brains, like such as proteins, is only activated in deep sleep. And Alzheimer's disease is linked to a dysfunction in the glymphatic system, which is directly linked to the poor sleep. So that is just something that we need to understand here. Waking up on the right side of the bed is going to require getting those 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. And then when we wake up in the morning, how many of you have the habit of reaching for your phone and going onto Instagram and checking WhatsApp messages and going onto Facebook and seeing what's happening there and then checking out emails? How many of you check emails first thing in the morning, check your WhatsApp? Can I see a show of hands here? Wow. Okay, my screen is lit up again. Right. And I can share a personal story here with you guys quickly. 4 years ago, I found myself in a rat race. I would wake up in the morning and hit the ground running. And I was busy being busy, and I couldn't understand what is happening. And then what I realized was that I was waking up in the morning and reacting to my world. The first thing I would do is grab my phone, go onto the family WhatsApp group, see that there's a message from the family about our friends, John and Dina, who got engaged. Then I would go onto Facebook and congratulate the couple. Then I would go onto Instagram and see what's happening in the world of my friends. Then I would see Namshi's got a dress sale. And by 7:30 a.m. in the morning, I'd already purchased the dress online and I'd been on all these social media platforms. And I just realized that I am reacting to the world. And I came across a term known as own your mornings. And what this means is that the first hour of your day is spent off the phone. Because if you're waking up in the morning and the first thing you're doing is checking your emails or going onto social media, you are releasing more cortisol into the system. You are in a state of stress, actually, because you're reacting to something. And so something that I started doing 4 years ago, and I haven't looked back, and I share it with my clients, and my clients do it as well, is the first hour of your day spent off the phone. I ditch my phone for that first hour. I do not go onto WhatsApp. I do not go onto social media, and I most definitely do not check my email. And that hour is then spent going inwards. It may be that I do a reflection where I think about, how do I want my day to unfold? I may engage in a meditation practice. I may connect with my highest values and ask myself, which values do I want to align with today? I may, spend that time just going inwards and doing this self-reflection first. And it has brought a sense of calm to my day. And my clients have reported the same, that it has made them more productive because the emails can wait. The comments on Instagram can wait. The likes on Facebook can wait. Okay. But your mental health is most important, and you need to make sure that your cup is filled before you step out into the working world and you start giving to your work, to your families, to your children. All right. We first need to fill our own cups. And so affirming your values, thinking about what they are, engaging in a mindfulness meditation is really going to help with this. And once you've done that, part of owning my mornings as well is to engage in physical exercise. And I don't engage in physical exercise just because. It is because there is science behind this. And what they found is that if you exercise first thing in the morning, it releases BDNF, which is brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Okay, that's a very, very long word, but it's a powerful little protein that stimulates your production of new brain cells and strengthens the existing ones. And what they found is that high BDNF is linked to learning faster, remembering better, and aging slower. Okay, and it also repairs our brain cells from stress. So if you want to get out of this space where you're feeling stressed all the time, the first two things I'll prescribe to you is 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night and moving your body, okay? Getting that physical exercise in. We know that this is a great buffer against stress, and we know that it can lead to you also feeling more connected, because we've heard the terminology of having a fit fam. So a family that does fitness together. And what they found, Kelly McGonigal, who is a professor from Stanford, explains how when we have a fit fam, it isn't only about exercise, but whoever you move with, whether it's a walking group or maybe a group class, because exercise alters the way we think about things, you start to feel a true sense of connection with the people that you're moving with. And so it's twofold. It's not just, going out and exercising, but it's finding a group of people that you can go do it with, because that makes us feel more connected. So, if we want to make the best use of our time, try and find a friend that you can go and exercise with, because it's twofold, the benefits. Firstly, you're getting your exercise in, and secondly, you're connecting with someone in your day. So it gives us that sense of belonging. It reduces feelings of loneliness and isolation, right? And it boosts our overall confidence and increases our self-love, okay? Then, once we've come back from the gym, or we've gone out for that walk, or we've done our horse riding lesson, we then need to use time where we are creating. And between the hours of 9 a.m. and 12 p.m., do not be responding to emails. Do not be doing mundane tasks. That can be left for the afternoon. Between 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. needs to be a creative time where you are engaging with new content, where you are creating new content, where you are problem solving around things that need to change, doing strategy work. And so that is where we need to be really focused, and ditch your phone again during this time. Because Robin Sharma, who is a well-known author of books like The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari and The 5 a.m. Club, speaks about attention residue, which means that if you spend time being distracted by your phone during this focus period, you leave parts of your attention on your device and you're not fully engaged in your work, okay? So we want to make sure that we make the best use of this focus time. And there is no such thing as multitasking. When someone says to you they are really good at multitasking, I want you to challenge them, because it is scientifically proven that your brain cannot do two things at once. What the brain actually does in multitasking is that it simultaneously, what it is doing, it moves a spotlight of your attention back and forth between different stimuli, shifting from one task to another in rapid successions is what multitasking is. And according to some studies, shifting between tasks can actually cost as much as 40% in productivity. And so when someone says to you, I can multitask, you want to know how well are they doing at the tasks that they're busy multitasking with. Because have you seen people texting and driving? I have. It doesn't look very good, because either they are driving too slow or driving in your lane, or they are making typos in their texts, okay? So we know that you cannot do two things at once. And people will say, but yes, I can. I can walk and chew gum at the same time. And I want to say, yes, you can, because the one is, both of these are automatic reflexes. They're things that we can do, all right? But when you have to focus on something, there's no way that you're multitasking. And we lose 28% of an average workday to multitasking ineffectiveness. So my suggestion here is to get your hands on the book, The One Thing. It's a great book by Gary Keller. And in this book, he speaks about how can we focus on one thing. right? And get our minds on one thing at a time. And so when we are focusing on one thing and giving that one thing our attention, everything else starts to make sense. So choose that focus time wisely. And then what we need, and something that we often downplay, is the downtime. Because our greatest insights come from being in downtime. It's about experiencing boredom and then daydreaming and then having that burst of creativity, right? And so we can only do that during downtime. We can only do that when we are in a non-focused activity. It's intentionally having no intention. And it's basically being anti-productive, okay? Because that is when we have our best moments. And I can give you an example of this. I am also the creator of a children's board game, which aims at facilitating emotional intelligence. And when I was in the creation stage, I remember that my greatest insights used to come to me when I would be out for a walk in nature. That's when the big insights would come. And I remember times that I had these awesome ideas and I'd have to run home to write them down again. And so if we want to get into a creative state, if we want to solve a problem, sometimes we need to take time away from that problem and just engage in a downtime exercise, which is maybe going and sitting on a beach and watching the waves crash on the shore, or staring at a burning candle, staring at the flame. And so we know that downtime really helps with the problem solving, with making better decisions. And so if you're struggling to solve something, step away from it. Go do something else, because there's an incubation period, which then allows for that insight to emerge. Okay? And then, can I see a show of hands? How many of you do not engage in play as adults? Wow. Okay. I want to say that you are reading this slide correctly. This is such an important task in adulthood. And our society tends to dismiss play. Our society believes that it's unproductive and petty and a waste of time. And, you know, a few years ago, there was a senior partner conference in Paris, and the CEO of Lego was at that conference. And he had given everyone in the audience some Lego pieces to play with, and they didn't know what to do with it. And, you know, he just said, well, engage in some play. And eventually they figured it out and they started engaging in play. But his message to them was that playfulness is very important for learning, creativity, and problem solving. And in order to be more flexible, we need to engage in play, because it helps us to navigate our way through moments in the day where we actually need to, you know, think on our feet and make a decision, and it keeps the brain agile. So I encourage you guys to engage in play, and the best people to teach you this are your kids. So to spend time with your kids or your nieces or nephews will help a lot, and connecting time is really essential. We know that this is a contributor to authentic happiness. We know that there's been a 75-year study, the longest study in history, which was the Harvard Grant study. And what they found was that they measured people's attitudes towards happiness, and they saw that these individuals, they took individuals from Boston, so undergrads from Harvard, as well as people from downtown city Boston, and they measured these men across their lifespan, and they would check in with these men every 2 to 5 years. And what they found was it didn't matter how successful these men were, one of them actually being an ex-president of the United States. But what they found was it didn't matter how successful they were, how far up the corporate ladder they climbed, you know, whether they got married or not, whether they had children or not. the greatest predictor of happiness was deep, meaningful connections with people in their life. And so when we have that in our lives, it's the greatest mitigator against stress, right? So we also know that feeling isolated can disrupt our sleep, it can raise our blood pressure, it can weaken our immunity, and it can lead to cases of depression and anxiety, right? So last but not least is the investing time. And in order for you guys to engage in these different activities, you need to invest some time in yourselves. You need to be investing time in your self-care, because we are most vulnerable to experiencing an episode of anxiety or depression when our stresses outweigh our coping mechanisms. And so engaging in these different times of day are going to keep those coping mechanisms up, right? And so very important with sleep is to drink magnesium B6 in the evenings. That's going to help relax your muscles. Drinking chamomile tea, bringing back the old-fashioned alarm clock, playtime, spending time with kids, being unstructured, connecting time, maybe playing board games with your family. And then, with time it may be that you even engage in therapy, because that is often where insights may emerge. And then also just looking at downtime, turning off the phone, allowing yourself to get into a space where you feel a bit bored, because that's where insights will emerge. Physical time, very important, trying to get in your 10,000 steps a day. And then with focus time, it may be doing your most creative work. It may be even playing a game of chess. That's making the brain really focused on something. And then investing time. Spend time investing in your mental health, right? And that may be that you journal, that may mean that you get into your own therapy process. I have my own therapist, he's based in Seattle, and I think that therapy is the greatest investment that anybody can make for themselves, because nobody's going to hold a mirror up like your therapist will, and it allows for great insights to emerge and to increase that self-awareness, which is one of the components of emotional intelligence. Right. So some homework for you guys is to look at your week and to think about, when do I get in that sleep time, that physical time, that focus time? Am I making time for these things? Am I fitting it into my schedule? And tiny tweaks lead to big changes. Yeah, you don't have to do everything at once, but you can start with your sleep and focusing on getting that 7 to 8 hours of sleep, and then focus on the exercise, and then focus on the playtime and the connecting and. When health is absent, wisdom cannot reveal itself, art cannot manifest, strength cannot fight, wealth becomes useless, and intelligence cannot be applied. And so if you found the information in this webinar useful, we actually have a very strong online presence on our social media platforms. We have 5 different Instagram accounts that you can follow. At LightHouse Arabia is our main Instagram account, where we are sharing pertinent tips around mental health and well-being. And then we have our Dr. Salia Afridi account, where our managing director and clinical psychologist, Dr. Salia Afridi, helps you in your own transformation journey towards self-growth and development. We also have 2 parenting platforms. One is at Lighthearted Parenting, where we focus predominantly on authentic parenting, real parenting, giving you tips and tools around navigating your way around the task of parenting. And then I mentioned earlier that I'm the creator of a children's board game, Smart Heart, which aims at facilitating emotional intelligence in kids. And we have a page dedicated to that specifically, where we give tips and tools around cultivating EQ in kids and adults. And then we also have our platform for youth at Lighthouse Insight, and we also have a TikTok page at LightHouse Arabia that you can follow us at. Right. So that brings me to the end of our session. I'm going to take some time for some questions now. I will go through the Q&A section. Right. What if we don't have a strength or haven't discovered it yet? What I could suggest then is that you take the VIA character strengths survey, which is online. You just type in viacharacterstrengths.org, and you can then take a survey where you get to know what your character strengths are, what your highest strengths are. And if you want to know what you're good at, pay attention to what you enjoy doing between the ages of 5 to 12 years, because that's often where our passion lies. What they found was that the founder of, so Jo Malone, who sold her company to Estee Lauder, as a kid, she used to make potions with petals and roses, and so it often gives us an inclination as to what it is that we are really good at, okay, and what we do enjoy most. So I have difficulty getting up in the morning, even though I sleep early. Okay, so what I would also suggest is getting some blood tests done to see what your vitamin D levels are like, to see what your vitamin B levels are like, to rule any of those out when it comes to our energy levels. Unfortunately, today, social media isn't the main cause of our anxiety and dissatisfaction. It's work, not because we're unorganized, but because of the sheer increase in the workload. Our leaders struggle, so do our subordinates. It's an epidemic, and there seems to be no way out because the system is broken. What do you recommend in a situation like this? We barely get time for sleep, exercise, personal time. Once a while is fine, but this is how it is always. Very important point, yeah. And to this point, I will still say that social media is a cause of anxiety and dissatisfaction alongside your work. And what they have seen is that there have been studies done on this, that according to Gallup, 87% of people are dissatisfied with their work. And reason being that what they found, and this was in the 1970s already, there was a professor, Michael Marmer, Australian social scientist, who made a major breakthrough. And what he found was that individuals who feel that they have no control over their work will experience more bouts of anxiety and depression. So if you work in an organization where you are continuously micromanaged and there is a hierarchical structure when it comes to management as opposed to a collaborative structure, you will experience unhappiness in your work. And if your leaders are modeling unhealthy work-life balance and they're struggling with their stress levels, there's something known as emotional contagion. It will just spill over into the team. And so something that can be of great help here is doing mental health first aid trainings in your organization. We have seen that through our work with professional services, we've really helped organizations move the needle when it comes to their company's mental health fluency and mental health policies. And what we have found is that when leaders get trained in mental health first aid, it shifts the attitudes in the organization. When leaders start taking care of their own mental health, it rubs off on the team. It's the same as parenting. If parents are eating unhealthy food, the kids are going to eat unhealthy food. And so it is about looking at moving the needle on mental health, taking the mental health first aid trainings. And this is something that we offer at LightHouse Arabia. We are the only accredited mental health first aid provider. And it's a course that originates from Australia. Just like you have physical first aid, you have mental health first aid, so that you're able to detect whether or not you or your colleagues are struggling with a mental health difficulty, stress, burnout, anxiety, depression, substance abuse, and you're able to then respond to this individual and get them the appropriate professional support that they need. And it also helps you with being able to deal with crises when they arise, like panic attacks or suicidal ideation or suicidal attempts or trauma in the workplace, right? So it helps people respond in those situations as well. How do I push myself to start making my life better? Starting is always the hardest part for me. What can I do to actually start? That's a good question. And research has shown that motivation is a myth. Okay, if you're waiting to feel motivated to start on something, you're going to wait a very long time. What they found that is more effective is to just get started, and the motivation will follow. So take action and motivation will follow, not wait till you're motivated and then take action. And so it's just getting started. A great book that I can recommend is Atomic Habits by James Clear. Atomic Habits. It's a great book to get the ball rolling here. Right, so this brings us to the end of our session for today. I know that there were many more questions asked. Please, if I could ask you to DM me on our LightHouse Instagram page or at Smart Heart Board Game. I will then respond to these questions as well. This is recorded and this recording will get sent to all of you. Thank you for your active participation and wishing you all a beautiful week ahead. Take care.